What's up, all you cool cats and kittens? Just kidding. That was some Tiger King vibes. But yeah, no, it's me, David, Sack Experts. It's Matt, Fantasy Salesman. We're over here enjoying another day of the podcast, Run Pass Option. If you haven't had the ability to go follow us, man, you all we do is talk football. We do mailbags. We do Sunday morning stuff. A lot of fun people have been on the podcast. A lot of fun people have gone live with us. Man, we got a few people like Daniel. Shout out to Daniel Owen, NFL Owen, Rise 13, please. And there's plenty of you guys out there that I have on my radar that I really want to bring on the show. So it's really one of those things where Matt's doing an awesome job of recruiting people and bringing people on. We got some really talented writers that are contributing to fantasy analyzers. Just been real fun. And if you guys have been following along, you can kind of see how we've progressed. Sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes to the side, sometimes back around. And man, I guess we'll start today with just some reactions to Thursday's football game. And that was between the Bengals and the Browns. And wow, man, I got a few takeaways because Joe Burrow, the number one pick, the LSU Tiger himself, who transitioned to number one pick overall, Bengal, Heisman Trophy winner, a lot of hype, won a national championship. Like, whoa, this guy is supposed to come in and lead an organization that was very disorganized, very murky, and he comes in, he loses the first game by a touchdown. He threw the game-winning pass to AJ Green, who seemingly pushed off. They called it back, lost the game. Now, let's fast forward to week 2, Thursday night football, first primetime game. All eyes are on Joe Burrow. What does he do? 61 passes. Matt, can you believe 61 passes?
Oh, it's so dirty. At fantasy
Is
football,
that the
I've done
combination
61
for a winning
passes, but
team?
no. You need to run the ball. You need to make sure that you get the ball to your weapons to establish that under Joe Mixon. They weren't ready. I mean, they couldn't handle the Browns defensively. They needed to sling the ball in order to stay in this game. They made it a close game at the end, but Browns dominated. They mixed up the ball a little bit better on that side of the ball. So, no.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I was just so shocked that, Joe Burrow in his second professional game, yeah, granted, he's the leader of the franchise, but he threw the ball 61 times, and that's concerning for me, especially when you pay a guy like Joe Mixon $50 million. You got to give him 25 touches a game. But that's neither here nor there because what he did with those 61 passes was very up and down. He threw 14 targets, and I'm going to go ahead and repeat that 14 targets to AJ Green. And what did AJ Green do with those targets? He had 3 catches. He had under 50 yards. Like, is that something that you can live and die by, Matt?
No, AJ Green. I mean, I think he just thinks I'm just gonna throw it in AJ Green's direction and hopefully something happens. I guess it's like a hope and a prayer every time it's AJ Green, might as well. But you still need to get the ball on target, and the defense was definitely playing more of a lockdown, probably putting pressure, on Burrow to force him into the goofy throws. I'm surprised he didn't throw any interceptions. Honestly, 61 attempts and no interceptions. I mean, that's pretty solid. He ended the game with a 90.6 passer rating. So, there's not so much complaints with Joe Burrow, especially as a fantasy asset. But the team as a whole, the Bengals need to do something. He is a rookie, so that the expectations are kind of limited, and I'm not expecting him to come out as Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or anything like
I'm
that.
good.
We'll see him grow.
I'm gonna I'm gonna piggyback on what you said, man, because actually, I know that I kind of came off like a little bit like 61 accidents. That's wild. But to me, that means that the coaching staff has faith in you. To me, that means that you're the guy. To me, that means that they trust you to be able to handle all situations. When you have the most passes in, the modern era as a rookie, like that's just telling a lot. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. So I want to shout out to Joe Burrow because, man, honestly, I do believe in you. I do believe you're the
Yeah.
future of the franchise. I'm excited to watch you for the next 10 years against Lamar Jackson in that conference. That's going to be fun to watch. So I think that the best is ahead of you, my guy. Really hoping that you put these two losses behind you and you keep on pressing forward because it sounds like you're pretty cool headed. You weren't afraid of the prime time. You dropped 316 yards passing, and that's my
Mm-hmm.
takeaway on that, Matt.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And on the other side of the
I know we
ball,
wanted to. I know we wanted to talk about a couple of start sits, right?
yeah, absolutely. Of course, if you catch us live Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Excuse me, 8 a.m. Pacific time, we're going to be dicing up a little bit more start sits. What our lineups look like for each of us. There's going to be four of us, I think, again on this weekend. So catch us live on Twitter and YouTube. Fantasy Analyzers, Twitter's Fantasy Analyze, and we'll be kind of
Eh,
dicing up more starts and sits as well as what our expectations are for the week.
Yeah, and I'm gonna end since we kind of talked about Joe Burrow for a few minutes there. I'm just gonna end on just my final thoughts on the Cleveland and Cincinnati game as a whole. Okay.
All right.
It looks like from my notes, Kareem Hunt only had 4 touches before the fourth quarter. So that tells me a lot that hey, he had a touchdown early on, and it looks like they were up, by maybe 2 touchdowns, and they went to Kareem Hunt in garbage time. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that it tells me that um, Nick Chubb, he had 5 goal line touches in the first 3 quarters, and Hunt had a 1 goal line touch. So all those fantasy players that are kind of wobbling between Hunt and Chubb as a flex or as a Chubb's a second or third round pick in a lot of leagues. So a lot of people are kind of angry that Hunt is taking so much usage from him. But
Yeah.
I think what we have to understand is that there's been backfields that have 2 starters. And if you remember in 2016, that was Tevin Coleman, that was Devontae Freeman. If you remember even as close as last year, the 49ers had a couple different backs they were utilizing.
Yeah.
So there's been, and then Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray. There's been plenty of times where there's 2 backs that can be useful, and we're starting to see that a lot, especially with like Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins. But
Yeah.
those are really kind of some things to keep an eye on as a fantasy football player. Also, I'll say that Cincinnati tight ends. If you're looking for a tight end, look no further than Cincinnati. Uzoma looks like he tore his Achilles in this game today, but Cincinnati tight ends combined for 15 catches, and it looks like they had 87 yards and a TD. So, I'm sorry, 15 targets, 11 catches, and 87
Yeah.
yards. So 15 targets, 11 catches, and 87 yards combined for the tight end. So it looks like Joe Burrow's really taking a look down at his tight end. So
Big
that's something to
targets.
monitor moving forward. So,
Absolutely.
and
So we could go from
yeah,
here to start
speaking of tight
sits.
ends, I'm going to say that my guy and a lot of people's guy who won them some leagues last year, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper has had a rough start. He's got 4 catches and 37 yards through the first 2 games. Man, to me, that says stay away.
Yeah, he only had 2 receptions
Stay
in the game.
away.
So, 22
Again,
yards. He only had 4 targets. So
again.
Baker Mayfield is looking for his guys out of the backfield, particularly Kareem Hunt. So as well as Odell and him, he didn't have to throw the ball very often this game. He threw the ball for 23 times, and he completed 16 of those. And essentially, it went to Kareem Hunt, and it went to, even he only had 2 catches too. So it's like, if they can get out, and of course the Bengals is a rookie quarterback, the Browns are going to get out in front, just control the game. They caught the lead, towards, I think it was, they had the lead from the get-go. So running the ball, you have Nick Chubb over 100 yards with Kareem Hunt as well, getting those carries and receptions that launched his usage up for fantasy players. So we'll see what this offense looks like. Last year, They had some struggles the year before. They showed some flares here and there. So I'm looking for 2020 Browns to be a strong team. They're now 1-1, so they're gonna get their feet under them and really
And
produce.
now, if we're talking start sits, because I saw that up there, Matt, I'm gonna go ahead and drop some players that I'm really excited about for start sits, man. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna start with somebody that I think is gonna do really well. He's playing against an Atlanta team who's gonna put up some huge points. His name's Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott is gonna continue on that hot start. He was hitting Amari Cooper, he was hitting CeeDee Lamb, and I think that especially Michael Gallup gets really involved this game against the Atlanta Falcons. So Dak Prescott is one of my guys, definitely starting this week. I'm gonna go ahead and also say Derrick Henry is a must start. He's one of my guys. I think he goes for 100 yards and 2 TDs at least. I'm going to go with Kenyon Drake.
Okay.
Kenyon Drake against a Washington football team that has been ho hum against running backs historically over the last
Yeah.
several years.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper against Atlanta,
Makes sense.
and that goes also with Julio Jones against Dallas. So I'm thinking that game is going to be fantasy gold. I can see Dak, Matt Ryan, Ezekiel Elliott, Julio Jones, Amari
Okay.
Cooper, Michael Gallup, all having huge games. So I'm going to keep it
Definitely.
going. I think T.Y. Hilton has a bounce back week with Phillip Rivers. They connect on a TD. I'm also thinking that Jared Cook and Emmanuel Sanders, both New Orleans Saints, somebody's got to catch the ball, right? And Drew Brees, he kind of had an underperforming. I think he had less than maybe 200 yards, and he had two
Did I bring
TDs.
Jared Cook up a couple weeks ago
It
on the
was kind of
podcast?
ugly. It was
Huh.
super ugly.
Jared
It was
Cook.
something like that.
Huh.
So I think Jared Cook and Emmanuel Sanders with no Michael Thomas because Michael Thomas we have a high ankle sprain, right?
Yeah.
So along with Alvin Kamara, of course, is going to be one of those. Alvin Kamara is a superstar. Him and Derrick Henry are superstars to me. If you're playing DFS, go lock in Derrick Henry. Go lock in Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake's going at $5,900 on DraftKings. I got him in one of my lineups, and I'll share him shortly. So
And we'll share
yeah,
them
be
live,
excited
right, on
about
Sunday
Kenyon Drake
morning.
for 59.
So
Yeah,
Sunday
we will.
morning, we're gonna
We
share
will.
those Sunday DFS, I guess, or D whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
daily
DFS. Yeah,
fantasy.
DFS.
So I'm gonna
And
be
then
a little
my
bit more on the top. I don't know, on the cusp of should I start, should I sit, and we'll discuss more kind
sure.
of questions on live. But this week I have my eyes on Matthew Stafford. I think him and against the Green Bay Packers, it's always a sling him out game. That he's going to get those attempts. He's going to get the yardage with his tight end there, as well as Marvin Jones, and he has some backs out of the backfield that can move the ball as well. Deshaun Watson, he impressed me last week. He kicked it off for us in the NFL. Deshaun Watson, even though he doesn't have DeAndre anymore there in Houston, he has weapons, and Deshaun Watson knows what he's doing. He's a smart dude. He's going to move the
He
ball, and I think
definitely knows what
Baltimore
he's doing.
as well is going to be a very high scoring game, and I want to be involved with that if I can be. As far as running backs, there are definitely a few, in the lower end. Kareem Hunt, I called him out over and over as kind of a flex option / RB2 option tonight. I'll leave that on
And
Twitter.
hey,
But
listen to this
I
guy,
like
Matt.
some.
He's been banging the Cream Hunt drum all year, all preseason. So really, he called that Cream Hunt a flex option in fantasy football league. So
Appreciate that,
listen to
bro.
this guy, Matt, the salesman, fantasy salesman.
Another guy that I'm kind of curious on how he kind of develops and how Nagy brings him along. David Montgomery. If you have a flex spot and you maybe don't have a wide receiver that you feel kind of completely comfortable with, put David Montgomery in there. He's going to get some usage this week against the Giants. This will be kind of a low-scoring game. It kind of always is with the Giants and the Bears. So we'll see. But David Montgomery is someone that I would be willing to put in my flex spot, especially with those that drafted wide receivers too early. Wide receiver, you already said Emmanuel Sanders. I was on Fantasy Football in Fives podcast. I think it posted today. And I was banging the drum for Emmanuel Sanders. I've loved him since he got to the Saints. I felt like he'd be a weapon for Breeze if it ever came to it with Michael Thomas dealing what he's dealing with. Emmanuel Sanders is going to give you yardage at least, and he's going to get some end zone targets as well. Breeze knows how to sling that ball. He's up there in age, but that arm doesn't look like it. And Breeze is definitely a brilliant man. Emmanuel Sanders has the skills and the technique as a wide receiver to bring you those hot numbers in your flex spot, maybe even wide receiver 2. I wouldn't hate that as well. Wide receiver 1, it sounds like you're really starving for a wide receiver, but be thankful if you have Emmanuel Sanders on your roster after waivers or late draft pick or anything like that. I got him in 3 or 4 of my leagues, probably almost half of my leagues. I got him, in the 14th, 15th, 16th round. Some were free agents, waivers. That was crazy. Emmanuel Sanders, I think people forget who he was in Denver with Demaryius Thomas on the other side. He had a lot of bright spots in his career, and he's always been a solid second guy, willing to take the step whenever needed. So Emmanuel Sanders is the man. Another guy that I like this week again is Will Fuller. I said Deshaun Watson. I love that stack again. If Will Fuller stays healthy, I like him to get into the top 15, maybe even in the top 12 as far as wide receivers. He has that upside that I love. I love it on my roster, and I want Will Fuller.
Bang that drum. Bang that Will Fuller drum.
Yeah. Darius Slayton's also an easy pick. If he was on waivers, that's pretty crazy. I also have him in a few leagues.
I saw him on waivers in a league.
Sanders, yeah. So if you didn't have him in draft, get him in that 15th, 16th round, you're lucky if you got him on waivers. So be happy about that as well. I like your call out for Jared Cook. I was saying a little earlier, I think it was week 2. I said Jared Cook is who I got my eye on as far as a low-end tight end. With Michael Thomas going down, the ball needs to be spread around. So I'll just kind of put that out there, of course. T.J. Hawkinson, Matthew Stafford, love the stack as well. Tonight I'm feeling stacky. You know what I mean? I like the stacks.
I see you. You know what I'm saying? Like an extra bologna, a little bit of meat, a little bit of cheese, stacking it up.
Cheesy.
Stacking it up. Stack.
Some tomatoes,
Stack.
potatoes, some tomatoes, and some pickles. Maybe some lettuce.
Keep stacking it higher and higher.
Yeah, there you go.
A little bit of mustard, right?
Some mayo. It gets fancy sometimes.
Regular mustard, bro. Regular mustard.
No, I love mustard.
I see
Actually,
you. So I'm gonna talk about a
few.
Nice. We'll have to hop on the Xbox, by the way. Did you see the PS5 came out? I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, it looks like
but anyways,
looks like a freaking Toy Story.
November 12th. The haters gonna hate. I'm gonna talk to you about some busts, and I know this is kind of like I hate to put ill warnings out there, but I just have these vibes. I don't think David Johnson's gonna hit this week. I don't think Todd Gurley's gonna hit this week.
Okay.
I don't think Adrian Peterson is gonna be relevant. Peyton Barber, I don't think is gonna be relevant. I'm also gonna be down on Robbie Anderson. Let me get in. Jamison Crowder because he's dealing with the injury against the 49ers.
Sure. There's a couple guys I need to mention. Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. With Bruce Arians, you never really know what's coming next. I want to stay away. I love Fournette. I love Ronald Jones. If you saw on Twitter, you've seen any of my tweets early on in the offseason, I love both of them. The situation has changed. Bruce Arians is a smart man. We saw this Ronald Jones, Peyton Barber issue last season. This season, it's going to be Fournette and Ronald Jones until someone takes that role. So stay away now if you can, and then kind of feel it out as the season goes on. Bruce Arians is definitely a football coach. he's not a fantasy coach.
Yeah, so I'm also going to talk about some of the one quarterback that I have booming this week too is Old Faithful, Mr. Tom Brady, T12. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So I actually have Tom Brady throwing 2 to 3 TDs. Yeah, he's not gonna. Probably won't have Godwin, but I think he's gonna make up for that kind of disastrous game one. I also have a couple of tight ends on my radar. Evan Ingram bounces back. Hunter Henry has a strong game, and we talked
Okay.
about Jared Cook quite a bit. The
Yeah.
other guy that I have my eye on to make some noise this week to continue that good positive vibe is Kyler Murray. I have Josh Allen, and also again I talked about Dak Prescott right off the get go in that Atlanta game.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, we have some interesting situations. I think also another wide receiver you mentioned that is gonna could have some very upside if he keeps it up. I think Hollywood Brown has another solid game.
Oh yeah.
I think Lamar Jackson and him keep connecting. So if you have that flex play for Hollywood Brown, go ahead and lock him in.
Yeah.
I think he's somewhat affordable on DraftKings, man. I'm not sure if I would pay up for him, but I think that he's still gonna give you some good value. He's probably an upside of a TD this week.
Oh, absolutely. There's a few shout outs I want to make. Um, Kevin from, I think his tag is Du Bois, will be on with us this week. I want to thank again Daniel TM, for coming down and chilling with us. He's in Mexico, as well as Owen Smith out of Baltimore this last week. A couple guys that are riding for us and that will be making appearances on our podcast. Keith Ferguson, he's so Dak Fantasy Guy on Twitter. There's of course some guys that are kind of behind the scenes that are also helping as far as analysis and things like that. So shout out to them as well. A couple Davids.
Shout out to the contributors.
Yeah, fantasy analyzers, you're solid. I can't do this on my own. David can't do this on his own. We're a partnership, and we want to make sure that the community is heard in the fantasy analyzers. You are an analyzer if you're watching this, and I definitely appreciate your support here. And of course, David as well. I speak for both of us that we appreciate the listens, we appreciate the follows, but we really appreciate the questions and the comments. And even if it's against what we're saying, we love it. Bring it all, please. So that's all I want to say. Check out our website right here on our screen,
And I just
fantasyanalyzers.com.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to piggyback what Matt said. He's one of the most positive guys I know. One of the main reasons why I love being on this pod with him. And myself, everyone contributing. We keep it real positive. I think a lot of times in the community, you see that back and forth where people disagree, but we often disagree. We often have fun with it. And we just had a bet the other day where Matt won. He had Matt Stafford over Drew Brees week one, and it was so funny because I thought never in a million years week one, when a shootout, you're supposed to have Tom Brady versus Drew Brees, would Matt Stafford against the Bears do wonders. So yeah, he went with his gut, I went with my gut, and sometimes you win some, you lose some. Just like NFL Owen over there when we had that bet against Antonio Gibson putting up a certain amount of fantasy points. So I won that
5.6
one.
points or something.
And hey, shout out to NFL Owen. Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
So again, you win some, you lose some. We love just having fun with it. And if you don't learn anything from us, you'll enjoy kicking the shit.
Absolutely. You guys take it easy. Catch us at Fantasy Analyze, me at Fantasy Salesman, and David at Sack Experts. We're here from Sacramento and Las Vegas. And
Follow
guys
us.
from the country and the world.
Follow along.
Follow us.